I don't know why you can't make your bed. You could, if you wanted to. This is Monday. I know that they would.
South, not north.
What's that?
The warning.
Means South Jerusalem,
It's not. It's not.
it's not central.
It's not the kids.
Good.
Is there a shiur today? I can't hear you.
Yes, there is. They are moving to the miklat in the shul. It'll start again soon.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Chaim.
Hmm. I'm coming. I'm not done. Come. Good morning, everyone. Oh, there you go. What? Oh, thank you. I'll turn on. All right, wait. Okay, good. I was gonna go in the shower. I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, I don't think we got a warning, although some said.
Yeah, we did. We got a warning, I believe. She's away. She's getting her nails done. She's in a mud clot. Oh,
Try 10 minutes. Resume again in 10 minutes, Rabbi. We'll try to resume again in 10 minutes. Okay.
Hi, good morning.
All right.
Usually there's a two. See what's going on. Yeah, let's go.
בוקר טוב, צריך לעשות את זה תחרות, מי מגיע ראשון. אין בעיה. תיכנס, תסגור את הדלת. כן, סוגרים את הדלת.
Weeks. They've been fine. 2 hours every day.
לחייך, לא את יושבת? זה רק תרגיל שהולכים, קמים, חוזרים. זה תרגיל.
זה לשבת לעבוד וצריך לעשות משהו. או זה ילדים, זה הדקה.
קחו את זה כתרגיל.
אני באתי לעבוד אצלהם בבית.
טוב.
הוא מנקה את הספה, מאוד טוב, ממליצה.
כן.
הוא מנקה כמו וואו. עושה קסם בספה שלנו. בכיסאות, בספה. Ele veio limpar o sofá da minha casa.
Quem?
Esse homem aqui.
אתה בא מאשקלון לעבוד כאן או שעברת בינתיים?
Sofá, cadeira, tudo de boa.
למה אשקלון אין הרבה?
Como tirar pra lavar. Tem uma máquina super gigante, limpa, parece que tira até a alma do sofá.
Sabe que ele tinha que limpar era o estofamento do meu carro.
Eu falo com ele.
נו, מה אתה אומר?
Eles fazem também esse tipo de trabalho.
אין אולי לשקט, לא?
Porque o pessoal cobra uma nota para ele fazer esse
לא
estofamento.
יודע, בכל הארץ.
Mas eu faço uma vez por ano bem feito. Eu tenho uma máquina para limpar. Só que não dá. Tipo, chega um ponto que chega e fica
אני
muito
ראיתי עד 12 כדורגל.
Meu sofá é muito claro.
O tênis é כדורגל,
Se não vier uma vez por ano
Tênis
uma
é
limpeza
כדורגל.
profunda, não rola.
אבל לילות,
Então ele vem uma vez por ano,
אחרי החדשות
pensa,
אני רואה את כדורגל
limpa
בטניס.
tudo, tira no meio, nossa, fica limpo. Depois eu te
למה לא
mostro
ראית
depois.
כדורגל? היה משחק יפה.
Mas já marquei, fala com
Cadê tua mãe?
minha mãe tá com meu irmão.
Ah,
Agora.
ela vai ou não?
Ai, o pessoal tá cheio, eu tô tão preocupada. Eu não vejo a hora, sabe? Eu quero que ela fique aqui, mas sabe, tá na hora já dela ir embora. Não por causa de mim, por causa dela, eu me sinto tão nervosa, tão responsável por isso. Eu tô contando os minutos para que dê tudo certo, porque agora eles limitaram para 50%. E eu tô tão tensa.
Na hora pensei,
Eu tô tão tensa que eu não consigo nem comer. Eu tô tão
mas
nervosa.
se ela ficar aqui, ela tá obrigada, ela
Mas
não
eu não
tá.
quero aqui. Eu quero que ela vá embora. É muita tensão, sabe? É muita coisa. Já tá na hora dela aqui, o trabalho dela.
O que que ela faz lá?
Corretora de imóveis.
Ah.
Mas já comprou passagem, já comprou outra perna, já gastou dinheiro, já perdeu dinheiro, sabe? Você fala, "Gente, chega, sabe? Eu quero que ela volte para a vida normal dela.
Ela tem
ela
família lá. Os irmãos.
Mas eu quero que, sabe, que ela fique no canto
Avião
dela,
só faz
ela
a
fica
baixa,
2 dias
a bem
comigo,
dela
2 dias
pulsada.
comigo. Sabe, ela precisa descansar. Eu fico o tempo inteiro com crianças,
Não, tá
entendeu?
certo. Ela quer a vida dela de volta, né?
Eu me sinto muito responsável, sabe? Eu falo, sabe quando você fala?
Não, mas isso também você tem que tirar esse peso das costas.
É, eu sei.
Porque
Não é
você
minha
tem.
culpa, mas
Eu te digo isso com tranquilidade, sabe? Quer dizer, se
איפה
você
למדת
fica
באשקלון?
com isso, fica cada vez mais pesado.
eu
Se você
sei.
consegue, sabe, tirar um pouco cada vez, porque na verdade não está nas tuas mãos.
Eu sei. Quando eu vi
Quer
isso,
dizer, sabe, não está nas tuas mãos, ela está aqui curtindo, ela viu o bebê, ela viu a Yala andar, ela viu. E tem tanta coisa que ela aproveitou.
não, eu sei.
E com os meninos e tudo, não vale a
Não,
pena
você não-
você.
תרגילים.
Sabe, é uma coisa que você está pondo um peso que você não merece.
Não, você tá certo.
Entende? Quer dizer,
Não, é que eu quero que dê certo, sabe?
Vai
Eu tava
dar
tão triste quando eu
certo,
comprei
vai
a
dar.
passagem. Ai, que bom e tal.
האמת,
olha,
אני עכשיו הייתי צריך להיות
no fim
בטניס.
vai dar tudo certo. Hashem faz o trabalho
אבל
dele.
כנראה
É,
שני
ele
פרטנרים
Faz,
עייפים,
entende? Mas é muito
או
importante
שהם
que
לא יכולים להגיע
você
היום.
alivie,
É,
sabe?
mas sabe uma situação que você liga
Yes,
para
mas tá bom,
eles, né? Não uma agência, para
É pra-
companhia,
é,
ninguém atende, aí você manda o WhatsApp.
Não, também
claro,
tem nessa-
não, é uma. Você está constantemente agoniada com um
Trabalha na
programa
Bedikat.
que tem que desenvolver.
É, eu quero que ela volte, ela tem os remédios dela,
אם
já
אתה
tá
מנצח,
acabando.
אתה לא רוצה
Sabe,
להפסיד.
tem coisas assim que eu falar,
אם אתה
gente,
מפסיד, יש סיכוי שאתה
tadinha,
תעשה
mas
מהפך.
ela ficou muito feliz aqui, ela tá muito feliz.
Escuta, já não tiver nada que fazer, vem limpar meus vídeos.
Não, ela com certeza vai ficar e tal, é gostoso estar com ela, que eu me preocupo que ela possa voltar para as coisas dela,
Pois
sabe?
é, mas o ponto é que as coisas dela nesse momento estão aqui.
Não, com
מה
certeza.
חיפה?
Quer
Mas,
dizer,
olha, vou te
o
falar.
mundo dela
Ah,
tá
e
aqui
Se ela
agora.
não for embora agora, é só em maio.
חשבתי חיפה.
Em maio.
É muita coisa. Tipo,
É.
coitada, sabe? Você fala,
Ela te
meu,
ajuda no peso.
com certeza, mas é que eu fico com tanta pena.
É,
Eu falo,
então,
gente
quero
do
que
céu,
tá-
sabe?
Não, mas tudo bem. O importante,
E
e eu vou te dizer, o Brasil não está nada
É,
bonito. Quer dizer, ela não está
שיעשו
indo
תרגום
para
בתוך
paraíso.
הסרט.
Não,
Entende? Então, o
Zé,
paraíso dela é aqui.
não, se Deus quiser.
O paraíso é aqui, com
Eu
as
acho que dessa vez
crianças.
ela sentiu mais parte,
Não,
ela
show não
gostou
fala
mais
show.
de ficar aqui. Por incrível que pareça, acho que pra guerra foi bom pra ela sentir mais sense
Lógico,
of
deu mais
Belonging.
tempo,
Não,
deu
Não,
mais.
mas tipo esse senso de belonging, sabe? Tipo, interessante isso. Acho que dessa vez eu vi mais, assim, a vontade de fazer ali. Legal. Foi bom pra ela.
Foi muito bom e
מה זה בן דוד שלך? יש לכם
pensa
עוד?
nisso. Você tem um mundo e não
Ah,
deixa
bem,
que esse. Você tem
רגע, דוד.
e de repente você está com
Ah,
um peso em cima.
זה מסובך הדברים האלה. לא יכול.
Tira o peso.
Eu pego tudo pra mim.
Não pega. Você fica, sabe,
Davi.
alivia.
Não, eu tenho que
Respira fundo.
David.
Quer dizer, se por o caso acende umas velas.
eu tenho que fazer
דוד,
isso.
כמו מלך
Pegar
ישראל,
um sal grosso no pé.
כמו המלך
Isso é
שהיה.
importantíssimo.
Não,
Mulher,
eu
vamos
acredito em
chamar
todas
outro
as
mesmo.
coisas.
O negócio é o sal
ביבי הולך
grosso.
להיות
Gente, é
מלך.
o sal grosso.
Tirar, assim,
מלך.
Se nós fôssemos Tauruca, não
אמרו
é?
שבערד, לא בערד, בדימונה, הכל נפל חוץ מהתמונה של ביבי.
Sabe que
אז זה סימן שהוא באמת משהו אלוהי.
חשבתי שאתה אומר איזה שהוא רב גדול, לא ביבי.
בהתחלה אמרו שהיה הוא וגם הבבא סאלי.
עכשיו זה
אבל
רק
אחר כך שהראו את הקיר, לא היה בבא סאלי.
רק ביבי.
רק ביבי.
ביבי סאלי.
אז אותי
כי הוא בא לבקר שם.
אז אותי, כן, מישהו שם, זה בסדר. אז אני השתכנעתי שהוא, כנראה יש לו משהו אלוהי.
הוא הולך לאן שהוא הולך, אתה יודע לאן? לבונקר שלו.
אתה יודע שבברזיל אומרים שהוא מת.
כן, אבל אחר כך הוא הופיע בטלוויזיה,
כן, אבל אומרים שזה
אמר שהוא
AI.
לא מת,
אבל אומרים שזה
ולא יודע
AI.
למה, יכול להיות שהיה משהו בהודעה,
כן.
הוא הראה את האצבעות שלו, אבל לא
שיש
הבנתי.
שיש לו 6 אצבעות
כן,
ביד אחד,
כן.
ואז שהטבעת שלו,
כן.
הוא שתה קפה.
אבל הקפה לא זז.
קפה לא זז.
יש כל מיני סרטים
כן,
כאלה.
טוב, זה...
כי הוא לא רצה לשתות מזה.
ואז אחר כך התאריך זה 2024 במקום 26.
אירוע הסתיים.
אוקיי.
זהו, יאללה.
וזה בזכותך.
זכותי.
כן, כי לי זה לוקח יותר זמן.
רק הסתיים.
זהו.
טוב, ניפגש בקרוב.
I don't know, quem tem esse negócio aí pra escolher?
Go on.
כן, כן.
יש כן, יש הודעה.
Pergunta pra ele se quisesse que ele limpa seu carro. Você tá bem feio. Sabe onde é?
אוקיי.
אוקיי. זה מיד. זה סיגריות? יופי.
התאבלות בוקר. עשיתם התאבלות בוקר?
Hi. She told me that you clean the things. Yes. Do you clean also the car? You know my car, but it has to. I have to show you how it looks like, or how much is it? Just I have a Hyundai. The seat, yeah, the back seat and the front seat, of course. Okay, I'll talk. Eu vou mandar meu carro primeiro para a oficina, depois eu vou. Sorry, I'm sorry. No. You have a good program, don't you? Are you helping?
Well, with the couches?
Yeah.
No, that's what he's for.
Yeah. If you need something, Sam, if you are bored there, come and sit in my place.
Oh,
Okay?
thank you.
You're welcome.
Good morning, Sylvia. Isn't it nice to be greeted by a siren, by a beep, beep, beep?
Isn't it? It's nice. It's wonderful. We have nothing better to do,
Yeah, I stayed in the house all day yesterday. I have to go out and get some medicine today.
Oh my God. Roxy, I'm really, it's starting to affect me, this war.
Yes.
I was being very, very relaxed. And now I'm already these last 2 days are killing me. I don't know. How are you? How are things with you?
Well, Baruch Hashem, my apartment is very safe because the length of the apartment has no windows. And the
good.
mamad is right close by. And Baruch Hashem, since we happen to be right near the Arabs, we've been okay.
Okay, we are back. I'm going to mute everybody once again.
Okay.
Hi, good
Get all
morning,
those I
Rabbi.
can. Some advantages to Zoom. Okay. Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay, so we are back. So that was a live demonstration of what to do in the event of an azakah during the shiur. And there is a first for everything. And I can say that was the first time I've ever sold chametz in a bomb shelter. So there we go. All right. Afterwards. Thank you. Okay, so good morning. Welcome back, everybody. We are preparing for Pesach under difficult conditions, but nonetheless, we will have hopefully a chag kasher v'sameach v'shaket. That is what we all hope for and pray for. Let's discuss a few words, say a few things about Bedikat chametz, about preparing for Pesach before we get to Leil HaSeder. You know, I always feel every year we start discussing Hilchot Pesach, and there's so much to know, and there's so much to get through, so much to talk about in terms of chametz and Bedikat chametz and biur chametz, mecharat chametz, that very often we get stuck. Before we get to Leil HaSeder, we get to one of the most important nights of the year, and we haven't actually prepared for it in a certain way. So we're trying to avoid that pitfall this year, and we will try and get onto Leil HaSeder quite soon. But before we do that, just a few words about chametz. So one thing I want to say, and I say this every year, is that when we talk about Bedikat chametz, whether it's the formal Bedikat that we need to do the night before Pesach, or already now we're cleaning and we're getting our homes ready, we need to distinguish between two different areas and two different aims that we have in this procedure. Number one, when we talk about Bedikat, we talk about the kitchen, okay, or the parts of the house that are going to come into contact with food, where I'm cooking, where I'm eating, etc. There, I need to get rid of everything, even a crumb of chametz that goes into my food on Pesach makes all the food chametz, right? Normally, we have a din of bitul b'shishim, where we say that food is nullified if it is in a minuscule quantity that's inadvertently gets into a mixture. That law does not chametz on Pesach. Chametz that was food that was prepared before Pesach, if there was chametz narrowly. That's why, talk in a moment about shopping. When you go into the shops and you buy food, particularly on milk products, cheese and things like that, you'll see very often the label will say kasher lePesach erev Pesach. And people always ask, what does that mean? Or sometimes it will say kashlap ayin pei. Kashlap means kasher Pesach. Ayin pei means erev Pesach. People ask me every year, why does she say that it's kosher for Pesach on erev Pesach? I want to eat it on Pesach. It doesn't help me that it's kosher for Pesach before Pesach. The answer is, what that means is that food was produced before Pesach, milk and things like that are produced all the time. So the milk was produced before Pesach, and that means if somehow there was a crumb of chametz somewhere, every attempt is made to avoid it. But somehow that got mixed in, that is batel b'shishim, that it was made before Pesach, and therefore nullification applies. In other words, kasher Pesach, erev Pesach is synonymous with saying kasher mahadrin. That's what it means. If you see something in the shop and it says kosher for Pesach, erev Pesach, that means it's mahadrin, that means it's okay. You can buy it and you can eat it on erev Pesach, on Pesach, whenever you want. All right. But therefore, when we want to get our kitchens ready and we want to get our homes ready, any place that's coming into contact with food needs to be spotlessly clean, not even a crumb. There can't be anything there. When it comes to the rest of the house, when I'm doing Bedikat chametz for the area, is not the sake of owning chametz. There is no prohibition of owning a crumb of chametz. There is a prohibition of owning a kazayit of chametz, okay, which could potentially be edible. Therefore, areas of the house where one does not bring in food, areas of the house where one never brings in food, one doesn't need to check at all. But areas where you might have, even the bedroom, let's say you might have had a sandwich at some point in your bedroom. So you need to clean it, you need to sweep it, but you don't need to go in the kitchen. That's something else. It's something that can just take a little bit of the edge off, take a little bit of the stress off. You know, people are very, very stressed, particularly this year. I know in terms of trying to get the homes ready for Pesach. Remember, it's not the kitchen. It's not an area where I'm going to eat. If I'm not eating off the floor, if I'm not eating off the chairs, then that's okay. If there's a crumb there, so I'll do my best. I'll clean, but I don't have to go crazy. In the kitchen, of course, everything has to be kasher and covered and whatever it is. Okay, that's just a word in terms of bdikat chametz. In terms of shopping, right? Whether maybe you've already done zrizim maktimin lemitzvot. Maybe you've already done your Pesach shopping. If you've not yet done your Pesach shopping, good luck, because the stores are already crazy. But It's very confusing. There's all sorts of labels. There's all sorts of hechshers. People ask questions all the time. So everybody is welcome to ask. You can send me a WhatsApp, whatever question you may have. There's a very, very helpful website called Kosharot. Kosharot. They have a website. They have an app. They have actually this year an AI bot. And there's a product. You've got a product in the shop. You don't know if it's kosher, if it's not, if it's kitniot, whatever. Go into the Kosharot website. You can ask their bot and AI, is this product kosher? And it will tell you exactly whether you can buy it or not. Everybody always wants to know about kitniot. It used to be, until a few years ago, you'd go into the supermarkets and every single thing that you would pick up would say, Lochle kitniot bilvad. Nowadays, they've gotten a little bit better with differentiating with some of the labels. What I'll say, just two things. One is sometimes on a lot of the chocolates and things have a label that says, Mechir liftit. It doesn't say kitniot, it means liftit, which I think is rapeseed oil, or I don't remember what it is in English. But there are various opinions. If you're asking me, one can be lenient with that. One is, if it says mechel liftit, that is permissible. One can eat that on Pesach. I'm talking for Ashkenazim who don't eat kitniot. Also, another question that comes up regarding oils. Everybody wants to know every year, which oil can we buy? There is a big machloket going back generations regarding kitniot oils and regarding canola oil. Canola oil is made from seeds which are not actually edible themselves, and therefore there is a discussion whether this is kitniot or not. Bottom line is, there's a big machloket amongst the poskim. There are very good reasons, I believe, to be lenient on it. And if one wishes to use canola oil, one can be lenient. One should look for the hechsher that is Yoredar of Mahfud. But canola oil that has the hechsher of Rav Mahfud, even though it says lochlei kitniot bilvad, that is one can eat that and one can be lenient. If one wants to be machmir, one can be machmir. But that is, everything that we have nowadays. We live in an age of such shefa, and there is so much, and we have the luxury. People used to ask me, how come, once upon a time, I remember 30 years ago, whatever it was, we ate this product and that product that didn't have a hechsher, and they said we could, and they said, nowadays, you can get everything with a hechsher, so we don't need to rely on lower standards or the standards of extenuating circumstances, maybe that we once did, and that is a good thing, that we can keep a higher standard. Okay, just a couple of words about mechirat chametz, which some of you already did downstairs in the miklat. Comes to selling chametz. Okay, one does not need to sell one's chametz utensils. One cannot use one's chametz utensils. Obviously, the pots, the pans, the plates, etc. They should be put away in the cupboard. They should be locked up or sealed up over Pesach, but you should not sell them. One reason why you should not sell them is because any utensil that is owned by a non-Jew and then a Jew purchases, you have to take it to the mikveh. You have to do tevilat kelim. So if you're going to sell all your chametz utensils to a non-Jew after Pesach, you're going to have to take them all to the mikveh again. But more than that, and the primary reason you should not sell them is because there is no prohibition of owning chametz utensils on Pesach. There is a prohibition of owning chametz on Pesach. Hopefully, if you clean your pots and pans and you clean your plates after you use them, you don't have a kazait of chametz that is still attached to them. Once upon a time, when there was no soap and it wasn't possible and people had all sorts of dough and things and bits that were stuck and that were attached to the pots and pans, nowadays that's not the case. So we don't sell the chametz utensils. There's no prohibition. We also don't sell the taste of chametz that is absorbed into the utensils. That's not something that one can sell. It's not something tangible. Not something one needs to be worried about. One needs to be worried about actual foods, actual chametz, or tarovet chametz, spices, things like that. Whatever one wants to sell, one should pack away, put it in a cupboard, put it in wherever it is, lock it up, seal it up, put up a sign that says chametz, and don't open it unless the guy who has purchased your chametz walks in, knocks on your door on Chol HaMoed and says, I'm here for my chametz. And you show him where it is and you give it to him. Okay. Let's talk about it. Let's fast forward now to Leil HaSeder. Leil HaSeder, the Seder night. And there is so much going on Seder night. There is so much going on that if we don't start and think about it beforehand and understand what we're doing and have a bit of almost a roadmap in our head, we can very, very easily miss it. And we can miss the forest from the trees. There are so many details. And the details are very, very important on Seder night. In fact, the Rasha, maybe the question of the Rasha, the wicked son in the Haggadah, when he says, Ma avodah zot lachem, what essentially he's saying to us is, what are all these details? Why does it matter? I understand, we spoke about this once, spoke about it last year at a lunch and learn, you may remember. The Rasha comes along and says, I understand Yitziat Mitzrayim. I understand freedom for the whole world. I understand you have something, there's a big deal going on here. There's a revolution. There's something you want to celebrate. That's great. Let's celebrate it. Let's go have a barbecue in the park. Why do we have to sit here and you're telling me you have to eat this much matzah and the cup has to be this big and I have to lean to the left but not to the right? Why is it all so important? Why does it all matter? If you really want to celebrate, why? That's the question of the Rasha. And we answer him back with a phrase we say, Ba'avul zeh asa Hashem li b'tzeitim miMitzrayim. We say, it's because of this. Ba'avul zeh, you'll notice, by the way, this is a great trivia question for your Seder. Which pasuk appears 4 times in the Haggadah? So you all know the answer, because I just said it. But it's, there are lots of 4s. We have the 4 sons, we have the 4 questions. People have not heard this. Ask them at the Seder. What is the pasuk that appears 4 times? Where does it appear 4 times in the Haggadah? So you know what the pasuk is? I'm not going to tell you now where it is. That you can look up afterwards. But for the sake of these details, for the sake of keeping the Torah, that's why God brought us out. So that's the answer. The details are very, very important. But at the same time, I say the details are there to bring us towards a greater end, a greater goal. We're trying to understand, we need to, again, not lose the forest from the trees, understand what we're doing on Seder night. So that's why let's talk a little bit about the structure. It's very, very important to understand what the structure is. It's easy to get lost in the Haggadah. And there's a few ways that we can remember for ourselves what the structure is. One way, the obvious way, is that we have the 15 steps. The Kadesh, Urchatz, Karpas, Yachatz. Some people have the minhag to read it out at the beginning of the Seder, right? Or to sing it, to say, what are these 14 steps? What is it exactly that, 15 steps? What is it that we are doing? Another way to think about it maybe is through the 4 cups of wine. We have 4 cups of wine on the Seder night. Each one, these are not arbitrary. Each cup represents a certain element and it helps us deal with a certain part of the Seder. The first cup comes with Kiddush. The second cup comes with Magid, which is telling the story of Sipur Yitziat Mitzrayim. The third cup comes after the meal together with Birkat HaMazon. And the fourth cup comes with Halal. Okay, there's a discussion in Halacha whether or not one should have a 5th cup. Previous generation thought that we're now in the time where we could reintroduce factors that in any event, think about it, the 4 cups. We can also think mitzvot that we have. There are only 2 before we do that, let's talk a little bit about the Magid, about the story that we are telling on Seder night, and that is one of the 2 mitzvot deoraita. Right? Everybody talks about the 4 cups of wine and leaning and matzah and maror. Otherwise, also a mitzvah deoraita. There is a biblical mitzvah. The Chatam Sofer writes something fascinating. He says the only mitzvah deoraita of thing, where I have a command from the Torah, specific substance. In the days of the Beit HaMikdash, there were many. We had Truma, and we had Korbanot, and we had Korban Pesach, and we had many, many, many mitzvot. Mitzvah to eat on Erev Yom Kippur. This food I have to eat from the Torah. Such a rare bracha. We only make it on Seder night. The only mitzvah that I have to eat a certain food tells us about how important it is, how significant it is. That's why people go, how much matzah do I have to eat? And do I have to eat this much or that much? We'll talk about matzah. But the other one, no less important. Mitzrayim. Story. Is that just telling the detail? According to many poskim, talk about the halachot as well of Yetziat what happened, how we came out, the miracles that God did for us, and it's not limited to generation. In our generation as well, in the last 2.5 years, well, we've got a lot of stories. We've got a lot of stories of miracles, and we can tell those, and we share those and share those. That is part of the mitzvah as well. So, but again, it's important to the details at the beginning. Every karpas, everybody said or whatever. No, so you have to know how to base it, and you have to save the dvar for the karpas. You can say that later. No one is allowed to tell a dvar Torah about the 4 sons. He said, "We'll read the." And the Haggadah says, "At ptachlo," right? The son who doesn't know how to answer says, "At ptachlo." So he would say, you don't have a discussion why it says at ptachlo. All these things, right? These are things that we can talk about. By the way, it's maybe a chiddush. You're allowed to talk Torah. You're allowed to talk about things connected to the Haggadah during the meal as well. It's allowed. It's not, one does not have to stop during the meal and talk politics. One's allowed to carry on talking about Pesach. But that's, all these things. Rav Shechter, I heard once, told the story, I heard actually his son said that in their house, Torah, home from school, that's all very nice. He says, throughout Pesach, Seder night, we're telling the story of the miracles that happened then, the miracles that extra sections of midrashim and of stories and of things that you can tell. One is allowed to, should go off script when we're reading through the in times to add in to talk about the stories, talk about them. Ultimately, we're trying to inspire everyone around the table, inspire them with, and that is definitely the fulfillment. That is one of the main elements and the essence of Seder in terms of okay. And these 3 things, the Rambam writes, if you've not done it in this way, you've not fulfilled the obligation of telling the questions and answers. That's why we begin with Manish Tana. At the Seder tradition, he says the Manish Tana, right, standing on a chair. If people have questions at the Seder table, the principle that disgrace, we move to a place of praise. What does that mean? Machloket in the Gemara. Doesn't mean physically or spiritually. Doesn't mean we start off, what is the gnut? Right, disgrace was that we were slaves. And the shevach is that now we are free people. Well, that's one opinion. There's another that we were spiritually distant. And then Hashem brought us closer. We don't want to it's not for now, it's a topic for another time, but throughout the Haggadah, throughout the Seder night, you can whereby we have chalokah, opinion A or opinion B, that's, I think, intrinsically connected to Pesach. Together, okay, something you can think about. I'll give you one. And then we eat maror, and then we do korech, right? Maror on its own. Seder night, we don't want to go this opinion or that opinion. We want to do both. We want to incorporate everybody. Okay, and you can see throughout the Haggadah, I think there's not like examples of the foundation regarding Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. And we can incorporate all sorts of things, even if they are not written in our Haggadah. Okay, so those are the two mitzvot, the oraita that we have on the Seder night, matzah. And so in terms of other mitzvot that we have, the Rabbanan, throughout the night there are many. We have the mitzvah of eating maror. We have the mitzvah of korech. We have which is leaning, reclining to the left while I drink my cups of wine and while I eat my matzah. We have again, we'll go through the structure, point out some things about certain stages. The four cups of wine. Four cups, as we said, each one marks a different stage of the Seder. The first cup is also the cup of Kiddush, right? The second cup is over the Haggadah, over the Magid. This is the one that many people forget to pour, right? I've been at many Seder where the first cup, everybody knows to pour because that's for Kiddush, right? And then you drink the cup and at a certain point, the Haggadah says, now we raise the glass. And everybody turns around and says, when do we fill up the second cup? Okay, so don't get, when we start telling the story of Yetziat Mitzrayim, we have our cup in front of us. That cup is like a l'chaim. I think it's a Kenigsberg Rabbi who says, there's certain parts of the Haggadah where we lift the cup and we hold the cup while we're saying it. One of those sections, we get to Vehi She'amda. Vehi She'amda was always such a poignant, such a powerful piece in the Haggadah, and particularly now, we say those words, we sing those words in every generation. Every generation they tried to destroy us. It didn't happen once. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved us. Okay, it doesn't, right now we can hear the planes overhead. It doesn't take much imagination. So at that stage, we lift the cup. The Kenigsberg Rabbi said, you lift up the cup. It's like a l'chaim, right? We're singing a l'chaim at that point. So that is the second cup. The third cup of wine we say over Birkat HaMazon, and the fourth cup of wine we pour and we say Hallel over that. Now, ordinarily, when we have Kiddush, we have a Yom Tov meal, we say a bracha, borei pre-agafen at the beginning, and then we drink and eat, or whatever we say, Motzi lechem min haaretz, and that's it. On the Seder night, it's a little bit different. There are lots of brachot that we say, which normally we would not say. So why is that? And the reason is that whenever I eat or drink something that is not a usual part of the meal, so then I have to say a bracha. Obviously, the first cup of wine, we have to say a bracha of borei pre-agafen because that's Kiddush. We haven't said any brachot yet. We haven't started eating. But what happens afterwards? So the third cup of wine also is clear one needs to say a bracha because that is after Birkat HaMazon. So I'd have to say a new bracha again. But what about cup number 2 and cup number 4? So the Sfardi minhag, those who go according to the Shulchan Aruch, is that you would not say a bracha. According to Sfardim, you would only say the bracha borei pre-agafen first cup and the third cup. A few places like this where the Sfaradim follow the opinion of the Rosh, who was an Ashkenazi Rishon, and the Ashkenazim follow the opinion of the Rif and the Rambam, who are not Ashkenazi, right? This is one of those places. And why? We say because each cup is its own mitzvah, each cup has its own bracha. It's also probably connected to the fact that there's a hefsek in between. One is not allowed to drink extra cups in between. So therefore, we say the bracha before each of the 4 cups of wine. We say the bracha borei pre-agafen 4 times. Just a quick point regarding all the brachot that we say on the Seder night. Okay, there are 2 ways that it can be done. Either the person leading the Seder can say the bracha on behalf of everybody, and everybody says Amen, and then eats or drinks, or each person can say their own bracha. Either of those is fine, but one just has to know whoever is leading the Seder should have in mind, if everybody else should have in mind, if my intent is not to say my own bracha, but to rely on the one leading the Seder, so that's fine. One should just have that in mind. How much wine does one need to drink? So each cup, the size of the cup, has to be, and this would apply to everybody who's fulfilling the mitzvah, your cup needs to contain a revi'it, okay, which is, according to the more lenient opinion, 86 mils, 86 cc. According to the Chazon Ish, who has a different calculation in terms of how we work these things out, says it would have to be up to 150 cc, and the way to remember this is by gematria. They don't say this because of the gematria, but the gematria helps us to remember. The gematria of the word kos is 86, which means cup, and the gematria of the word kos hagun, which means a nice cup, is 150. So therefore, but since the 4 cups is a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, one can rely on the lenient approach. So 86 cc, that is sufficient for the size of the cup. One needs to drink, however, the majority of the cup. So if one has a much larger cup, then, at least according to one opinion, one would have to drink more. So it's best not to have too big a cup, so that one can have all 4 cups of wine. What about people who want to know, can I fulfill the mitzvah with grape juice? So there are those who say that the mitzvah has to be it needs to be an alcoholic beverage, needs to be wine. But many poskim are lenient and say that grape juice is sufficient, particularly if one does not like wine, if it would make one ill, if it's difficult. One can also mix a little bit of wine and the rest grape juice if one wants to be concerned for that. But certainly, if it's difficult for one to drink 4 cups of wine, grape juice is sufficient as well. Okay, one other point regarding the 4 cups. Each of the 4 cups, one needs to recline, haseva, leaning to the left. How does one recline? So when I was growing up, we always thought it meant you sit on a chair like the chairs you're sitting on, and you just lean to the left in the air. That is not called reclining. That is very, very uncomfortable. The point of haseva is that it's meant to be derech herut. It's meant to show that we are free people, we're like nobles, we're reclining in a way that is comfortable, that is luxurious, and therefore one needs to rest against something. So either if you have a chair that has an armrest and you're leaning against the armrest, that is okay. If your chair does not have an armrest, the best thing to do is to turn the chair to the side, and then when you are leaning, you're actually leaning against the back of the chair, which is on your side. That is considered reclining. Women are not required to recline when they drink the 4 cups of wine or when they eat matzah. If they want to, if they wish to, they are allowed to, but they are not required. If one drank without reclining and only remembered afterwards, so for various reasons, it's only by the 2nd cup that we would go back and we would drink again. But by the other cups, if one forgot to recline, one would not drink again, and one has still fulfilled the mitzvah b'diavad. Okay. So we have Kadesh, we have Orchatz, we go and we wash our hands, we don't say a bracha at that point. We then have Karpas, where we take a piece of a vegetable, whether it's parsley or potato or any vegetable is okay, whatever your minhag is, and we dip it in salt water. We say the bracha again. We say the bracha because we've not yet said the bracha of Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz. The truth is that even if we had said the bracha of Hamotzi Lechem Min Haaretz, since we're now taking a food that's not what we normally eat, we would have to say a bracha on it. Right? An example of this, which we're all familiar with, is the night of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah, we sell our motzi, we've had our bread, dipped in challah, and then we take out our dates, our apple, pomegranates, whatever simanim you have, and you say the bracha, borei pri'ayetz, because that's food that you're eating separate, it's not part of the meal. But in any event, so we say the bracha here of borei pri'alama over the karpas, we have in mind that bracha now applies not just for the karpas that I'm eating now, but for the maror that I'm going to be eating later. I don't say a bracha borei pri'alama, but I have in mind that bracha will include that as well. And then we get to yachatz. We take the middle matzah and we break it in half as best as we can. It doesn't have to be exactly in half. Don't worry. Everybody always tries, but it doesn't have to be. I once saw a video that was done. It was actually in, I think it was Japanese, that somebody sent me, that it was a video on YouTube of showing you how you could break a matzah exactly in half. And the person took a paintbrush and he took some water and he went down the middle and then he was able to get it exactly in half. Okay, we're not going to do that. We don't need to do that. But we break it. Right. The reason we break that middle matzah is because We want to hide half of it away for the children for the Afikoman, right? But the real reason is we have matzah is called lechem oni, poor man's bread. A poor man does not have a whole matzah. He only has a half. We only have, it has to be less than whole. Throughout the Seder night, we're remembering that we were slaves and then we became free. So we do actions which symbolize the elements of slavery. We do actions which symbolize the elements of freedom. This is one of those which symbolizes slavery. So therefore we have half a matzah. Now we have a question. Every Yom Tov and every Shabbat meal, I have 2 loaves of bread, or 2 loaves of, or two pieces of matzah. The rest of Pesach, every Yom Tov meal, Shabbos, we have 2 matzahs for lechem mishneh. What do we do? How do we? And lechem mishneh always has to be whole. So what do we do now if one of our matzahs is in half? So there are 2 approaches. One approach says that since your matzah is broken in half, but you need lechem mishneh, which means you need 2 complete matzot. So you need to have 2.5 matzot. That's why we have 3 matzot. That's where it comes from. There's all sorts of nice symbolisms, right? Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Kohen, Levi, Israel. Those are symbolisms. But the real reason why we have the 3 matzot is a halachic reason. We want to have on the one hand lechem oni, which means prusa, which means we have a broken matzah. We also want to have lechem mishneh, like we do every Shabbat and Yom Tov. So I have the lechem mishneh, which is 2 whole matzot, and then I have the half a matzah, and altogether that's 3. Then I have 2.5 when I come to make the brachot. That's one approach. There's a second approach that says, wait a minute. Why do I have a half a matzah? Because I'm showing that I have less. Because I'm showing that I'm an ani, that I'm poor, that I'm a slave. A slave has less, not more. So you're telling me normally I would have 2 loaves. But tonight, on the Seder night, manish tana layla zeh, I have 2.5 loaves. I have more than I normally would have. How can I have lechem oni? How can it symbolize that I'm poor if I have more? And therefore, those Rishonim say that you don't need lechem mishnah on Pesach night, or you have lechem mishnah by having incomplete loaves. Okay, we don't paskin that way, but that approach exists. And how would we resolve that question? We would say, no, the fact is, we're not looking at the number of matzot that you have, but we're looking at the shape, we're looking at the form, the fact that there is matzah which is broken, that symbolizes the fact that we have poor man's bread. But now we have a question. And now our question is this. We're going to take the matzah, we're going to say 2 brachot. Okay. So that's exactly the question. We have these 2 brachot, right? We have the first bracha is, all right, hamotzi lechem min haaretz, which is the same bracha we make all the time. And then we have the specific bracha of al achilat matzah. So the question is, which bracha relates to which matzah? So as Judah said, when I say hamotzi lechem min haaretz, generally I'm referring to my lechem mishneh, I'm referring to my 2 whole loaves. So therefore it makes sense to hold, and that's why, and this is what we do, when we start saying the brachot, we hold all the matzot together. Because we assume that at least for hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we're referring to the whole loaves. But then when we say the bracha of al achilat matzah, we're referring to the broken matzah. Okay? That's one opinion. That's one approach in the Rishonim. There is another approach. I'm not going to get into it now and to why it is, but I'll just say what the approach is, which is exactly opposite. There's an approach that says hamotzi lechem min haaretz, that refers to the specific matzah that I have now for Leil HaSeder, which is the broken matzah. And then when I say al achilat matzah, I'm referring to the whole matzah. So the bottom line is, we're not sure which bracha is referring to which. And therefore, we have to hold both. So the way we do it is, we pick up all 3, which is actually 2.5, because half has been put away. We pick up all 3, and we say the bracha of hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We then drop the bottom matzah, because the third matzah, that for sure is not, we're just holding that for the sake of lechem mishnah, but our bracha now does not refer to that one. So we drop the bottom matzah, and we hold the top 2, the whole and the broken, and we say the bracha of al achilat matzah, okay, and then we have to eat. So which matzah do we have to eat from? So since we're not sure which bracha relates to which, at least this refers to the person who is conducting the Seder, we now have to eat our kazayit of matzah from the matzah that I just said the bracha on, which is either the top matzah, which is whole, or the middle matzah, which is broken. And this is why the Shulchan Aruch says, for motzi matzah, you have to eat 2 kazaitot. Okay? That's why we eat from both, because in order to make sure that we have from both matzah. Now, there's an interesting, and there's a question here which the Biur Halacha raises, which is an excellent question, and doesn't need the asking from me, and I don't have an answer for it. Every year, but he says like this: the Shulchan Aruch says that one should have two kazaitot. One should be machmer and should have two kazaitot. Why? Because I want a kazait from the whole matzah and a kazait from the broken matzah. Okay, he then says that applies to everybody. Everybody should have two kazaitot of matzah when I say this bracha. But he has the question, not the right. Aminag is that the person says that we say the bracha and we give a little bit of that matzah that we say the bracha over to everybody. But really, once you've said the bracha and once you've heard it, you're going to fulfill your mitzvah. You'll fulfill your mitzvah with any piece of shmura matzah that you eat. That's why we have extra matzah on the table, especially if you have a large Seder. There's not going to be enough for a kazayit from that matzah for everybody to eat. So let's say somebody's sitting at the other side of the table, and they're going to eat their matzah from the plate that's in front of them, which is not one of the three matzot on the Seder table. What difference does it make, therefore, if that person eats one kazayit or eats two kazaitot? Because you're not eating from the original matzah anyway. That's the question the Biur Halacha says. He says, tzarich iyun. It's not clear. It seems to be from the Shulchan Aruch that everybody should eat two kazaitot. Why? Because of which bracha relates to which matzah. But if you're completing it from other matzot anyway, why wouldn't one kazait be enough? Okay, that's a question. I don't have a good answer for you, but that is the question. So therefore, lekatchila, when it comes to matzah, motzi matzah, we try and eat two kazaitot. How much is two kazaitot? Now, there are many, many different opinions, and she taught us to how we work out what the size of a kazait is. Not getting into that now, but I'll say the following. I'll just share with you a cheshbon which Rav Rimon makes in his Haggadah, which is very, very logical, and I think one can very, very easily rely on this approach. Okay, he says the following. He says, we are eating two kazaitot for motzi matzah, but we're eating two kazaitot as a chumrah, as a stringency. Really, it's enough. So long as I eat one kazait, I've fulfilled the mitzvah on a basic level. Every time we have a mitzvah of eating, kazait is enough. I've eaten a kazait, I've fulfilled it. You want to be machmer, you want to be stringent, have two kazaitot. Okay, fine. How big is a kazait? So we have our different approaches. We have what's called the size of the kazait of Rav Chaim Na'eh, and what's called the kazait of the Chazon Ish. Here we don't have gematrias to help us remember. Okay? But so we say like this: you want to be machmi, you want to have the larger measure of a kazait. That's also a stringency. So he says like this: I don't have to accept both stringencies. I don't have to take on all the chumras together. If I eat the amount which is enough, which is the size of two kazaitot of the small kazait, and it gets to the size of one side of the bigger measurement, then I'm fine. Then I'm for sure fulfilled the mitzvah. If you want to say that I want to be machmir, I want to have the stringency that I've eaten two kazaitot, well, according to the measurement that a kazait is smaller, I've eaten two kazaitot. And if you want to say that the amount that I need to eat is that a kazait is a larger measurement, well, I've eaten that larger measurement. I haven't eaten, according to the Chazon Ish, what he would call two kazaitot. That's okay. Okay, that's what he says. So bottom line is, how much should one eat for this mitzvah of motzi matzah? 3/4 of a machine matzah. Okay, how much is that with a hand matzah? You can work out, but 3/4 of a machine matzah for sure. With that, you have fulfilled the mitzvah. If that is difficult for people, then half a machine matzah. Also, one has fulfilled the mitzvah like that. The other measurement for korach, for the afikoman, it's enough to eat a little bit less. The afikoman, one wants to be stringent. 2/3 of a machine matzah would be sufficient. If that's difficult, a half of a machine matzah is also fine. Because we also say hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
You said it on the two whole ones. And
Yes.
You drop everything and you hold a half a matzah and you say,
Right. Because there is a machloket. Because there is a machloket whether I'm saying alachila matzah stringent and we want to do both. That's that's what the Shulchan Aruch says. Okay, I'm aware of the time. Just for those who've walked in late or who've come to Sal Chametz, I know we started the shiur at 10 o'clock. We tried to start the shiur at 10 o'clock. And then the Iranians had other ideas. So we went down into the miklat. So we started 20 minutes late. So we'll go for another 5 minutes or so. We'll carry on, just do some more of the halachot, and then we'll be available for mechirat chametz. Okay, so can you what? After you've eaten the kazait, sure, you can wash it. You can. So again, one should eat the way that one would normally eat. As long as one sits and, you don't have to stuff it down your throat. You shouldn't be having unnecessary delay, meaning a person takes a bite and then stops and then goes for a walk and then comes back and has another bite. No, one should not do that. But one just eats normally. One sits and eats, one will get to within a few minutes, that is fine. One does not need to sit and eat with a stopwatch, the right hand to eat. And he was sitting there and he was eating the matzah. And I remember the matzah and the African, it was, we have to eat more matzah. Oh, we have to eat more matzah. I can't do this. I don't think that that's the way that the Torah intended for us to fulfill this. As I said before, Chatam Sofer, this is the only substance that we have nowadays in the absence of a Beit HaMikdash, that I'm eating a food that the Torah said, you have to eat this food, and it's a mitzvah. It shouldn't be done in a way that's painful. It shouldn't be done in a way that is right, that one is sitting and complaining and unable to eat. One eats normally, and the truth is, people complain. People say, how can I eat so much matzah? How can I eat a kazait? Then watch how much matzah they eat during the meal when they don't have to eat it. You're picking at it all the time. So it's very easy. It can be done. It can be done. Okay. Correct. Yeah. Sure. When I say the bracha of al achilat matzah, I have in mind the matzah that I'm eating now for matzah, as well as the matzah that I'll be eating for korech, as well as the matzah that I'm eating for the afikoman. Why do we eat the afikoman at the end of the meal? 3 different opinions. There's an opinion that says, because we have to end the Seder with a taste of matzah in our mouth, therefore the last thing that we eat, we still drink after we have the cups of wine, but the last thing that we eat would be the matzah. There's an opinion that says the matzah is a zecher of the Korban Pesach, right, which was eaten at the end of the meal. The din was Korban Pesach was eaten ala sova. You wouldn't eat the Korban Pesach when you were hungry. You would eat it when you were already satiated, not stuffed, right, not achila gasa, but satiated. And then there is an opinion of Rashi. And Rashi says the mitzvah of eating matzah nowadays is, you know what the real mitzvah of eating matzah is? Not the matzah that you eat at the beginning of the meal, but the matzah that you eat at the end of the meal. Just like the Korban Pesach was eaten with matzah at the end, so to the matzah that you eat at the end. So why don't we say the bracha of al achilat matzah at the end? But really, Rashi says the mitzvah of eating matzah, when I say al achilat matzah, what I really have in mind is the matzah I'm eating at the end. And therefore, according to that approach, I think it's the Brisker Rav who writes, one should not interrupt with speaking that is not connected to the meal from the time that I say the bracha of al achilat matzah until I've eaten the afikoman. Now, we don't pass in that way, so it's okay. But I think it does teach us something. Meaning, because even according to that approach, I can't interrupt with things that are not connected to the meal. And I said earlier in jest, I said you're allowed throughout the meal to talk about Yetziat Mitzrayim. You're allowed to talk about Nisim v'Niflot. I think this is there's an opportunity for us. Shulchan Orech is one of the simanim of the Seder. The meal that I have, it's not disconnected. I remember when we were kids, we'd go through the meal, we'd go through all the steps, we'd finally get to the food, and then we'd all leave, we'd go to the couch, we'd go to whatever. No, it's not that, I have the Seder, and then I have the meal, and then I have the other part of the Seder. The meal is part of it. What we are doing on Seder night is we are eating a Seudat Hodayah. We are eating a meal of thanksgiving to Hashem for the miracles that were done then and the miracles that were done now, and it is the most fitting thing in the world to spend the time at the meal talking about the parts of the Haggadah that we didn't get to, talking about the stories, talking about the Divrei Torah, talking about the Midrashim, etc. That should be part of what we're doing and part of what we are practicing then. Just as well after the meal, so we have Shulchan Aruch, we have the Afikoman, we have Halal. The truth is Halal, this is one time where we split up Halal. We say the first 2 prakim before the meal, at the end of Magid, and we say the rest at the end. There are those who explain that the first 2 prakim of Halal deal with Yetziat Mitzrayim, and the later prakim Halal deal with the future Geula and the future redemption and other things, many of the things which we are living through. So that is something, and it's meant to be a spontaneous outpouring of song, an outburst of joy. I think that the Hallel in many ways is the climax, it's the peak of the Seder. It's unfortunate that for many people, you're tired, let's just say what we have to say, let's mumble it all along, and let's finish and go to sleep. It's not the way it's meant to be. The way it's meant to be is that it's all building up the entire night. We've gone through Magid. How can we follow along that peak? How can we keep climbing? The way we can keep climbing through the meal, through the Sudat Odaya, through the Birkat HaMazon, and then through Hallel, and that's really the peak. And that's something that we should try and have in mind and try and be mechaven at all of our Sedarim. Okay. So Ad Kan, I think we will end there. There's obviously so much more to talk about. As I said, the Seder is such a busy night and it's packed with mitzvot, it's packed with details. It's very, very important that there's hachana, there's preparation before it, and that's why we have Shabbat HaGadol. We have time. We still have time towards Leil HaSeder. And, alongside all the preparation, all the physical preparation, the cleaning, the cooking, the shopping, etc. That's to set aside time for ourselves to go through the Haggadah, to be familiar with the stories, to be familiar with what it is that we're going to say on the night, and hopefully that way we can all arrive, even in this situation, and maybe especially in this situation, we can find ourselves at an inspiring and uplifting and a meaningful Seder, and as I said at the beginning, a Chag Sameach, v'kasher, v'shaket, right, for us and for all of Am Yisrael. Bezrat Hashem.